Alright, hello everyone. We have been more serious of a video today. It might be a bit of a longer one. I would really ask like anyone watching, regardless of if you know any of the competitive Nintendo scenes or not, take a listen. I think regardless of if you're involved with competitive or not, this is a very important thing to keep in mind. So for those who are out of the loop, Nintendo of Japan, America, and Europe, and probably everywhere else at this point, have published the official community tournament guidelines, which is a giant thing. And basically, these are going to be restrictions and stuff for tournaments. And this thing is really long to cover, so I'm not going to get into it here. We're going to go through a summary posted over here, and I'm going to talk about it. So I will have a link to this post in general because I found it a good summary. There might be some things that are slightly off. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert in this. But this is the basic summary of what's going to change for our tournaments. First off, offline tournaments must have 300 or fewer players. Offline tournaments must have 200 or fewer players. Tournaments must be organized by individuals or nonprofit teams. So, for the player cap, this means without a license. Some of these things are exception if you get a license, which we don't know how good it will be to get that. From what we've heard from the Smash scene, it's not going to be very easy. Basically, unless if there's some loophole to be found, tournaments are restricted to, for our online events, basically about a 75 team cap. So for a normal bracket, it would probably be 64. This is obviously a problem. For example, our league, Ludi, this season has around 700 teams. There are some individual divisions with 96 teams. So more than likely, tournaments would have to be some kind of segmented or pool system if it doesn't have a license and able to function. Intellectual property usage. Game content can be used. Logos, characters, IPs cannot be used in promotions or decorations outside of games and screenshots. This even goes as far to, for example, there's a Smash tournament called, I believe it was Super Smash Con or Smash Con, I'm not exactly sure. That wouldn't be allowed because it has Smash in the name. So like if there's a tournament named like the Great Splatoon something, it probably wouldn't be allowed. That name would have to probably be rebranded. Monetization. Entry fees are allowed but must not exceed total tournament costs. In other words, TOs, tournament organizers, for those who don't know, are not allowed to make a profit. Prize money is capped at 20,000 yen per individual, or $175 USD per person. Advertising and sponsorship for the streams are not allowed, like the tournament streams. Broadcasting is allowed but must adhere to the guidance services. This is a big deal. This is a really big deal. It's going to be really hard for TOs to make money. Obviously, not many TOs make money in this scene anyway, but if you think about it long-term wise, it's a bit of a problem. And on top of that, sponsorships are a big deal. Being able to get sponsors for a tournament stream is a really big deal. That could help cover a lot of costs. And in this case, we don't have that. Number 4, game modifications. Custom software or game modifications are not allowed. This one doesn't really affect us that much. So, like, this is more Smash scene would probably be affected. We don't really use many mods in terms of competitive play. So this one doesn't really bother us. Yeah, tournament block. So you can try to argue the separate blocks, but that's, that's what I'm saying. Consequence for misuse. Could lead to legal action. Who's surprised? Liability. Nintendo's not liable. Okay. Guidance. Organizers must check the latest guideline updates. So good luck finding the updated ones. Unaddressed questions. They won't respond to individual inquiries. Special cases. School clubs may host under specific conditions, but groups will require authorization from Nintendo. You can't use the game title and stuff in the tournament name. Large-scale tournaments. No individual permissions for tournaments exceeding specified player limits. Options include splitting the tournament or organizing through a group, splitting it into blocks of 200 people and operating as many mini-tournaments. School circles may host specific conditions, other groups must apply. Also, charities at schools require separate authorization. Now, that's not everything. That's a very summarized version, and it's a lot of mumbo-jumbo. And this is just what it is right now. For example, and I won't say further here, there are a lot of teams with legitimate sponsorships in Japan. More than likely, a lot of those players might lose them. Or be screwed over by them. Or have less of a deal. I don't know. Maybe some people are mostly streamers will do it, but if you have a sponsorship as a player in Japan, and a lot of top players in Splatoon do, it's going to be a problem. So, that's one thing. And this even affects us. For example, say Jackpot is going to Worlds. If they get a sponsor, that sponsor cannot be shown at all in Worlds, which is a pretty big negotiating thing if you're trying to get a sponsor in this scene. Being shown at Worlds is huge. Worlds gets millions of views on YouTube. You can't have a sponsor there. You wouldn't be able to rep them at all. That was somewhat of the case before, but like you could at least go under their name. Now you probably can't even do that. There have been some tournaments in Japan that have already stopped. Some online events that have already given up. Here's what our TOs say. This is basically a collection of TOs from a bunch of notable organizations. It includes LANs like 4v4 Sundays, IPL, Ludi, Dapple, a bunch of them. Pretty much every notable tournament organization in the Western scene put out a statement saying, today, Nintendo announced significant changes to their policy regarding grassroots tournaments. Members of the TO Guild, representing many of the organizations in the community, have held a discussion to go over these changes and what they will mean for us going forward. We are not worried about these changes, and you should not be worried either. All organizations will operate as usual, and we believe that these changes will not significantly impact us. We will continue to monitor the situation and adapt accordingly to handle changes if and when necessary. Although we stay patient, we are not happy about these changes. In our view, Nintendo is stepping on the toes of a grassroots community they otherwise have not supported. We will voice our concerns to Nintendo in support of the community, and we will ask for you to do the same if you agree. Thanks everyone, players and spectators alike, for continuing to support us. Twitch has ads. I'm sorry, Twitch viewers. So, basically, right now, our TOs aren't too worried. We're thinking that licenses could be decently possible if we need it, and that some events might not be affected, or we could segment into blocks. I'm not sure the specifics. I do know that the TOs have talked for a while. Now, just because this might not be that huge a deal does not mean we should relax. First off, this affects other scenes more than ours. For example, currently, the Smash Bros. Melee scene has no way to apply for a license. They are not listed. As of right now, at the time of recording, Melee can't get a license. And again, like I've talked about, in Japan, some of these are even worse, especially in terms of sponsorships. For example, you can't have any prize money for Japan. A lot of that's based off old gambling laws, which yes, esports falls into. Here's what I would recommend. Right now, these changes have not been implemented. We don't know how easy it'll be to get a license. We don't know how exactly tournaments are going to be. We don't know how much they're going to enforce it. A lot of stuff. So right now, we don't know what's going to happen. And this doesn't affect Splatoon only. This affects Smash. This affects pretty much every Nintendo game out there. This is their general policy. As of right now, here is what I would ask from anyone who's still watching. Right now, what I would like is for people to be ready to take action if necessary. As of right now, things have not happened yet. We don't know what this is going to be like. As of right now, this stuff takes place in November 15th, and we're going to quickly find out if it's how bad it is. Maybe it won't be too bad. Maybe it'll be bad. Maybe it'll be good for some games. Maybe it'll be bad for others. Who knows? But what I am asking from everyone here is to be ready to put your voices to support the scene. If we have to protest this change, which I would not be surprised if we have to, then I would like people to be ready for it. Whether that means standing with a lot of organizers who are getting screwed over here, or disliking a Nintendo video, or not buying their game. Unfortunately, the Nintendo fan base has a bad tradition of being able to stand up to Nintendo. We're not very good at it. We tend to forget what happens when the next set of shiny keys are put in our faces. And so, I would like it if anyone, even if you're not that involved, please keep in mind. Because the competitive scene is not the only people Nintendo has screwed over if you look at their history. It is important as a community, as a broader Nintendo community, that we are able to stand together against changes like these. As of now, again, we're going to hope it works out, but please keep in mind, listen to Melee creators, listen to Smash creators, Mario Kart, Splatoon. Keep in mind, what are people saying? What are TOs saying? What are top players saying? What are anyone who's getting a C&D talking about? What are event organizers talking about for LANs? And if they're having a hard time, don't throw their shit aside. Don't ignore it. Don't pretend it isn't happening. Don't tell them to grow up because they're doing something for a community of people out of their own time. We have players trying to push the game, creators trying to grow the scene, and pretty much everyone here doesn't make money off this. Pretty much anyone who participates in the competitive scene makes very little and mostly does what they want to do for the game, for the people in the community. I got into content creation to grow the competitive scene. That's why I'm here. And so this is a very big thing for me. And so, since I have an audience and can hopefully help out a bit more than I was during stuff like Squid House when I just ditched a tournament, I would like to request that we are ready to be able to help out. Keep in mind what people are saying. And for now, stay informed about the situation. Listen to creators. Don't ignore it. Keep in mind what's going on. Don't just pretend it doesn't exist. I know it might be annoying. It might take a bit of time out of your day. But in this case, this is something where I think we really need to pay attention to what's going on. I hope that everything works out at the end of the day. I hope that there's some silver lining to this whole thing and that stuff improves. But at the end of the day, this is what we have to deal with. So, yeah, just keep it in mind. All right. Thanks for watching, and see you guys later.